أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأصحاب أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. We thank our Sheikh for a beautiful introduction. He relieved a lot of stress from me, because how do I present this topic? A topic that is based on perfection, a topic that is based on the best of mankind, presenting healthcare solutions for all of time. Tibb Nabawi is a topic that has been part of the studies amongst ulama since the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And we have to acknowledge that what we are busy with here is bigger than what it seems. We are in actual fact busy with reviving the Sunnah. For hundreds of years in gatherings such as this in the masajid, we find that all sciences was taught. All the sacred knowledge of Islam alongside clinical knowledge, knowledge of the human body, of pharmacy, architecture. The masjid was a place of learning. So therefore we find the ulama, the great scholars like Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, they were proficient in ahadith, in Quran studies, in hifz, but they were also proficient in medicine. So we found there was never a separation between knowledge, because the Muslims understood that all knowledge comes from Allah. So what we are busy with today, we are reviving a great Sunnah. The course is entitled Healthy Living According to the Sunnah, which is based on Tibb Nabawi, where we look at ahadith, ayat of the Quran, and what the Prophet ﷺ advised on how to go through our day-to-day life. The course is run by the Prophetic Healing Institute, which is an Islamic community-based organization with the sole purpose of reviving the Sunnah of Tibb Nabawi in the lives of all Muslims, beginning with each individual in this mosque, going on to take the message to your family, to the community, and ultimately we want to lead on to influencing public health. Because we find wherever Islam went through the golden era of Islam, every nation that it touched, it enlightened the nation. It produced intellectuals. It produced strong communities in their bodies, in the economy. The course content will begin by the first lesson, which looks at the importance of prophetic medicine. Then we look at what we call a Sunnah stress reduction program. We're all looking for a way to manage or reduce our stress. And we'll look at how the Sunnah and adopting various aspects of the Sunnah can actually help with that. We look at taqwa. What effect does our salah, our Quran reading, sitting in this masjid, has it any effect on our immunity? We look at our emotions, prophetic nutrition, and our temperaments. The outcomes is designed towards informing us, empowering us, and applying this knowledge with the sole purpose of practicing prophetic medicine for health promotion and disease prevention. And when we adopt this part of of the deen in our lives, we'll be living Islam holistically. And ultimately, we want to train the trainers. Every person in this masjid at the moment has the potential of being a teacher. So whatever you hear, you can pass on, and by doing that, you cause the Sunnah to potentiate, to carry on. And it comes, the amazing aspect of the Sunnah is that the last person that it reached could be practicing better than the first person that heard it. So never underestimate any advice you give someone. One of my teachers told me once that when someone comes to advice and asks you for advice, if you are not able to practice on everything you're speaking about, give them that advice, because they might be able to practice on that. And by doing that, you will get the reward of that. So when someone comes and asks you something, and you find that we might be a bit weak in it, give the best advice possible. That way you'll ensure that goodness will prevail. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Allah says in this verse that He has perfected our deen. He has completed His favor upon us, and He has chosen Islam as our deen. And when we are asked, what is Islam? as Muslims, we proudly say that Islam is not a religion, it is a way of life. And Allah further explains, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, that in the Prophet ﷺ we find the most perfect example. And the Prophet has informed us that if we hold on to two things, we will never go astray: the Quran and his way of life. Within the Sunnah, there is an aspect that we often overlook. And as we are sitting in this mosque and all the classes we attend, we place heavy emphasis on the knowledge of the hereafter, on the matter of the soul, of cleansing the heart, which is very important. But there's another aspect that is coupled to that, and that is the condition of the body. Why is it that Allah chose that this body has to be the vehicle of that ruh that you are trying to purify? Shouldn't it be that as we purify the ruh, we aim to rid ourselves of bad deeds, that we purify the body as well? If I were to place pure water, clean water in a dirty cup, would that water remain pure? So therefore we find that Tibba Nabawi teaches us that to look after the body is an act of ibadah. The Prophet ﷺ informed us that the body has a right over us. The Prophet ﷺ said that there's two blessings that people are deceived by: as-siha wal-faragh. He said it is your health and free time. The Prophet ﷺ climbed the mimbar one day and he began crying. And one of the Sahaba asked him, "Why are you shedding tears, Ya Rasulullah?" The Prophet ﷺ informed them that after you seek forgiveness, after you have been certain in your faith, the next best thing to ask for is good health. So the Prophet ﷺ coupled good health with iman, which is a very close relationship. There are many other narrations which can be found in many ahadith, and there's very numerous Quran ayahs as well. But for time's sake, we'll carry on. So what is Tibba Nabawi? Tibba Nabawi refers to prophetic medicine or medicine of the Prophet. It refers to all the recommendation, the treatments, the prescriptions, the tacit approval, the prohibitions, the means of disease prevention that the Prophet ﷺ gave to his Sahaba, and by extension, it is advice for us. And we know when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ, the ayah is clear, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيُ يُوحَىٰ. When the Prophet ﷺ spoke and he gave advice, it was not on his own accord, except that it was advice that Allah gives to the ummah. So where does prophetic medicine originate from? We find that during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, there was many types of medicine in Arabia. The medicine of the Indians, of the Byzantine Empire, medicine of the Syrians, all the surrounding peninsulas influenced the medicine that was practiced by the Arabs. But the most influential medicine was that of the Greeks, of Hippocrates and Galen. And we find that when the Prophet ﷺ gave advice, a lot of his advices were similar to the Greek philosophies. So we find there's a close connection between the two. And when the Prophet ﷺ spoke about health, we find that this became part of his sunnah. And when Islam spread beyond the borders of the Arab Empire, the Muslim came across many literatures on all the sciences. And because of their thirst of knowledge, when they found knowledge of medicine, they saw that it was similar to what the Prophet ﷺ recommended, and they would embrace that medicine. Regardless of what language it was in, from who it came, they would embrace it and they perfected that medicine, which is known as the golden era of Islam. And during the golden era of Islam, the Muslims coupled science with their iman. At a time when the church considered science to be blasphemy, the church considered that if you study science and you discover things about the human body, it might lead people away from religion. But for the Muslims, they understood that the more they delved into the body, into the cell, into how it worked, they wondered at Allah's creation. It caused them to be more firm in iman. Therefore, we find that during their time, they were the masters of the sciences. In actual fact, the Renaissance, the enlightenment of Europe, the reason why Europe came out of the Dark Ages rests on the shoulders of the Muslim philosophers and physicians and scientists. Today, there's something that we consider to be very mundane, the use of water. We all know that medical science proves that to use water properly is the best cleansing agent. To fight off diseases is the best agent for that. But there was a time when this was never known by the rest of the world. There was a time where Europe, the kings and queens that lived in their castles and palaces considered water to be connected to disease. Because of the climate, they would develop colds and flus that went on to pneumonia, so they wouldn't bathe. So for 2 years, or twice a year, they would bathe. The castles wouldn't have bathrooms. And then we find that because of the spread of Islam, it is well documented in history that illnesses that wiped out nations stopped at the borders of the Islamic Empire simply due to the health practices of the Muslims, simply due to the adherence of wudu and ghusl. And we'll discuss this in further detail. We find that many illnesses were also cured. لِكُلِّ دَاءٍ دَوَاء, the Prophet ﷺ said that for every illness there is a cure. مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِن دَاءٍ إِلَّا أَنزَلَ لَهُ شِفَاءً. That Allah has not sent down any illness except that He has also sent down its cure. And because of the statement, there was no such thing as an incurable disease during the golden era of Islam. So they would find ways to cure the most devastating illnesses. And these are a few of the physicians and philosophers that are well documented in history. As-Zahrawi, known as the chief of surgeons, he developed surgery equipment that is still being used today. We find Ar-Razi, the father of microbiology. Ibn Nafis was the first one to perfectly depict the pulmonary circulation. So as Islam spread and it went from different nations, spanning over a large geographical area, we find that the Muslim embraced all the different types of traditional medicine it found. So to take knowledge, and wherever there was anything that went against the Aqidah of the Muslims, against Tawheed, they would reject that part and they take the rest, whatever is in line with the beliefs of Islam. So Tib al-Nabi began to grow, and the religious scholars feared that Tib al-Nabawi would be contaminated. So we find the likes of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah and Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, the famous scholars of Islam, the giants of Islam, compiling these texts known as Tib al-Nabawi, whereby they concentrated on the ahadith and the Quran ayat of the Quran and the Quran ayats, and they put it in one compilation. And they followed a system on how to introduce this topic. And this compilation, these texts, is still alive today. And in actual fact, we find that modern day scientific findings are confirming the wisdom of this text. It was Imam Shafi that said that after the science of distinguishing that which is permissible and impermissible, the sacred knowledge of Islam sciences, there is no better science than Tib. In other words, there's no better science in studying the human body. So if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, he's described as Rahmatul lil Alameen. He's a mercy to all of creation. He's a mercy to the planets, to the ecosystem, to the trees, because he taught us how to live with our environment, to the water, because he taught us how to conserve water. He's a mercy to every creature. He's a mercy to every part of our body, to our skin, to our hair, to our nails, because he taught us how to conduct ourselves in a healthy manner. The Prophet ﷺ is the perfect model of balance. And the Quran ayah confirms this when it says that we are that ummah. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We are that ummah, that well-balanced ummah. So if you look at the principles of Tib al-Nabawi, it is based on purity, on cleanliness, on hygiene, physical hygiene, oral hygiene, cleanliness of the mind. It encourages moderation. It speaks about seeking the cure is a sunnah. A Bedouin asked the Prophet ﷺ, what should we do when we are afflicted by illness? Should we sit back and just have sabr? What is better, to sit back and have sabr with the illness, or to seek the cure? And the Prophet ﷺ informed that, this was the exact words, that I love good health as much as anyone else, meaning that we should seek the cure. So no matter what illness condition you have, take steps towards trying to live a better life for that illness condition, no matter what condition there is. And by doing that, you'll see that the Sunnah actually provides self-help therapies. Very important to mention that the Sunnah has never ever gone against modern medicine. In actual fact, medicine, the development of medicine is Sunnah. However, we have to acknowledge that the Western system of medicine and the system that is based on Tibb Nabawi are quite far apart from each other. Both is concerned with reaching the wellness of the individual, but the manner is different. But no way does Tibb Nabawi say, go off your medication, don't go to the doctor. Tibb Nabawi encourages seeking the cure and goes to the people who know. Go to the professionals. However, Tibb Nabawi encourages placing health in your hands, not in the hands of the doctor. The system that we follow today places our health in the doctor's hands, so whatever the doctor prescribes, we feel that our health care is done. But Tibb Nabawi teaches us that every day, every decision you make is either for you or against you, and that will influence your health. So about 80% of the outcome of your health rests in decisions you make on a day-to-day basis. And the medicine you get from the doctor is 5% of the cure. The doctor's trying to fix something that accumulated over time. And if we can take the steps, we can actually prevent it. And if not, we can improve our quality of life when we have those illnesses. So Tibb Nabawi recognized that there's two types of illness condition, the illness of the heart and the illness of the body. And it recognizes the integration of two, meaning that when the heart is uneasy, it affects the body. And when the body is not in good health, it affects the heart. We find that every act of ibadah in Islam is connected to physical movement. When you perform our salah, our wudu, even zakah, we have to work in order to pay zakah. Hajj, people will tell you that you have to have strength when you go on Hajj. So there's a direct correlation between our spirituality and our physical strength. In Hadith Qudsi, the Prophet informed us that Allah says that He loves the strong believer better than the weak believer. Both of them are special to Allah because of the Iman, but the strong believer can help himself and others while the weak believer has to rely on others. The journey of life means that we all will become weak. However, we should ensure that we improve our quality of life and we shouldn't become weak at our own hands. And Tibb Nabawi will show us that what we do, we have a big role to play. Allah has created this world to be a world of cause and effect. So we put in the effort, coupled with dua, and following the correct guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, and then we will find a better quality of life. So let's look at our current state. The state of the modern world is that there's an increase in depression, there's an increase in suicide rates, there's an increase of chronic diseases of lifestyle, heart attacks, blood pressure, strokes. The ages are becoming younger and younger. And we attributing all of this to a stressful lifestyle. So if you look at stress, there's different categories of stress. We have emotional stress. So when we're going through things that affect the heart, losing a loved one. Mental stress. We find that the demands of modern day living means that every person that's involved in this concrete jungle would be facing severe stress on a day-to-day basis. However, our bodies can adapt. But over time, our adaptation starts to weaken, and then we find diseases of lifestyle settling in. Biochemical stress refers to stress at a micro level, cellular stress, when we consume things that goes against the wellness of the cell, when we are afflicted by air pollution, things that we become adapted to. Environmental stress refers to the impact that our environments have on us. So any type of work that you do, any environment, when you consume yourself in that work for too long, it exerts stresses on your body that manifest over a few years. Survival stress refers to trying to make ends meet on a day-to-day basis. Spiritual stress is that stress that we don't speak about. It's the stress that takes place when we're not connected to the deen, where we find that we are overly worried about our day-to-day sustenance, and that goes on to affect our physical bodies. So in order to understand how the Sunnah can benefit us and how Tibb Nabawi can benefit us in modern day living, we have to look a bit closer and see what does modern day living do to the body. So our 9-to-5 jobs, stuck in traffic in the mornings, sitting incorrectly, our bad postures. We have to remember, the Quran explains to us, وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that mankind was created for the sole purpose to worship Allah. We were not created to sit in our office for 8 hours a day. And we find that when we do that, when we consume ourselves in work, I'm not saying that we all should resign tomorrow. I'm saying that understand that Tibba Nabawi gives us a guideline on how to live in this concrete jungle with preserving your health. So when we sit for too long, there's stress within the vertebra, on each muscle, on organs. We find the circulatory problems in the leg. The fumes that we breathe in from the computer, sitting here, the gas that emanates from the electrical activity, electromagnetic static that goes onto the body. Opening your windows in traffic, inhaling exhaust fumes, being in contact with chemicals with paint, with detergents. The news is a contaminant. In the past, whenever bad news took place, word of mouth went around and you'll hear what happened in the community. Today, we're getting bad news from all around the world that's exaggerated, that's made up. So we're hearing things that we just become accustomed to. But there's certain individuals in this gathering, in our community, that cannot handle bad news. We'll speak about temperaments at another stage. When they hear the bad news, it affects the entire day. It creates internal stress. So your blood pressure that you have, it has a genetic component, meaning that there's a family link, it's connected to diet, but it's also connected to your personality type that cannot handle certain environments. So you can be taking all the blood pressure medication every day, which becomes more and more and more. But if you're not targeting your environment and looking at what the environment is doing and following the Tibba Nabawi that helps you to cushion the harm of your environment, your blood pressure will keep on increasing. What we hear, noise pollution, loud sounds, bad speech has an effect on every cell of the body. Our connection with technology, social media, has caused us to lose the human touch. So we find we're speaking more to our siblings on WhatsApp and Facebook as opposed to the physical meeting. But there's something that takes place between human beings when they meet each other that cannot be measured scientifically. But today, in the field of modern medicine, they're starting to see the effects of human contact. Stress of work, like I mentioned, sitting in an office environment. This one poster basically says a lot, talks about organ damage, what happens to the spine. It speaks about leg disorders, varicose veins, bad circulation in the legs, pressure on the vertebra, stiff muscles, tension. And studies were done on people in different populations that watch TV for 8 hours and more. And there's a correlation. In populations that watch TV above a certain amount of hours, it is related to their lifespan. So those populations that watch TV excessively, they have shorter lives. Because connected to that incorrect posture would be binge eating, packets of chips, not inclined towards walking, and so much other bad habits. And we find that Tibba Nabawi teaches us moderation in all actions. And when we follow this recipe through everything that we do, we will find that we will provide the rest that the body needs at the right time. And we will not look like this. But we all face with stress. But understand that Tibba Nabawi provides a massive resource to empower every Muslim. And we'll be going through that. So when you look at statistics, the statistics is based on the American model. We find that whenever countries around the world become westernized, there's an increase of these 4 illness conditions. Mental illnesses, the M stands for millions. So in the United States, there's an increase. The estimated number of Americans affected would be 44 million by mental illnesses, heart disease. And wherever the model around the world mimics the Western model, and when I talk about Western model, I talk about the 9-to-5 jobs, clocking in, the takeaway chains, TV meals, social media, when we're all following the lifestyle that we're following today, there's an increase of illness. And when you study rural communities, so when you go to the Transkei, when you study the indigenous people living amongst the cattle, eating from the land, getting their own water, communicating with each other, we find they live to good ages and they have a higher quality of life. The incidence of cancer is almost zero. When those people move into the city, when they urbanize, you see that they start to develop. So when they start having the drive-through meals on a day-to-day basis, when they're afflicted by the same stress, when they're busy with technology for too much, they start to inherit the diseases of the modern world. If you look at India, Morocco, Arabia, any rural community, you will see that the quality of life is better. They're stronger. There's lower incidence of depression. Children are children, and they don't become old before their time. So definitely, in the modern world, there's an increase of contagious diseases, of mental diseases, of terminal conditions. And we find that the healthcare system globally is under strain. There's a lack of resources. Doctors are struggling. And there's a lot of emphasis moving away from curative medicine. What is curative medicine? Curative medicine refers to the medicine that when you have this illness, they provide medication for it. The shift is going towards preventative medicine, towards living a lifestyle whereby you can actually prevent these conditions from coming. And the call globally is towards natural living, to live natural lives. So they're talking about exercising regularly. They're talking about meditation, prayer. There's scientific studies done on people who pray. It's called prayer medicine. And studies have shown that those people that pray in congregation on a regular basis have a better quality of life. They are optimistic. They have better coping mechanisms. There's a 0% suicide rate amongst those people. So the people that's connected to prayer, they have a strong resource. What about those that are connected to the best of creation, to the Prophet ﷺ? And we find that these studies are in high-end journals, randomized controlled trials they are called, where they do studies on different populations, and they see that when these people have a regular routine, and out of the greatest research labs, we're finding recommendations coming through. So being involved in university research in natural medicine, I often come across journals on a day-to-day basis whereby recommendations are given. Follow this lifestyle. Wash certain limbs throughout the day with water because it's best for anger management. Sleep early. The traits of successful people is that they get up early in the morning. They sleep early at night. They rise early. They pray. They're connected to their families. They have an optimistic lifestyle. They smile often. They greet each other. They give charity. And as they mention the list, and we'll find that all of this is well engraved in the Sunnah. However, because we listen to the Sunnah so often, we grow up with it, sitting and eating seems so simple. The Prophet ﷺ was amazing in his speech. He said a few words and it carried a lot of weight. And today scientific studies are proving that the way the Prophet ﷺ described just the manner of eating can actually fend off heartburn, indigestion. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about having sacredness with a meal as opposed to having a Gatsby on the run, getting it from a window, driving through traffic, one hand full, the other hand steering. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about sitting down and eating, speaking, serving the guest, washing their hands, praying. And we find that the modern world is advising the very same. So the objective is to have a higher appreciation of the Sunnah. Often when we practice any type of Sunnah, we think it is a bonus, some bonus points we're going to get in the Akhirah. So the day of Qiyamah comes and we have all these good deeds of all the Sunnah. So we're going to get it then. That is true. But if you look at the Sunnah from a scientific perspective, holistically, you will see that every act of Sunnah will benefit every part of your body right now. As you are sitting here next to each other, there's something that's taking place in this gathering that you cannot measure, but it's benefiting your body. It's benefiting your mind. There could be certain individuals that came to masjid tonight very distressed, willing to give up, but they just come into the masjid to perform the duty of salah. But sitting next to someone that is practicing the sunnah, smiling at the guy, you're smiling, you might not feel, I don't feel like smiling, but I'm doing it because the sunnah has an effect on that person that sees it. So you soften the heart. Standing in your sufuf, shoulder to shoulder, has an effect. If you stand next to someone that's on a higher level of piety, your willingness and your spirit and it feels good. So this concept of seeking good company can be understood scientifically. So understand that in Allah's creation, there's perfection. If you look at the cell, you see this perfect organization. If you look at the cosmos, you see this perfection in the cosmos. In the human body, the deeper scientists are going into the human body, the more perplexed we become. We're going deeper and deeper. Once we thought the atom was the smallest, and they're going deeper into it, and now we have nanotechnology, and they're going deeper, and they're finding galaxies in the body. It becomes bigger and bigger, and we cannot not marvel at the creation. When you look at the ecosystem, we see that no matter what harm we do on the ecosystem, there's a self-healing mechanism. After a fire, we'll find that new greenery grows. If you look at food is starting to be a big subject. Within nutritional medicine, we find that food is being recognized as medicine. And organic food that grows from the earth. Even within growing food, there's a type of healing that takes place. So we take our model from the model of Medina. And if you look at the model of Medina, we see this perfect community, whereby they had a perfect system of economy, they had a perfect system of welfare, of health. The Muslims were strong, and they practiced holistic medicine. They practiced the entire Sunan, as opposed to today where our practice of Islam is confined to the masjid, and out of the masjid we live a different life. So we seek healthcare in a different way. But we have to understand that it's all under one umbrella. It's all under well-being. It's all under holistic medicine, which falls under Tibba Nabawi. So when we look the aspects that we will be covering in the course, we'll be looking at the Sunnah, at Islam as a holistic healthcare model. We will look at the effect of dua, of the intention. What effect does it have on cognition, on what happens when we actually say something verbally? And we'll find that many life coaches and this empowerment courses are all about positive affirmations, saying things to yourself on a day-to-day basis. In other words, they're telling you, make dua regularly. Make a dua for everything. Say Bismillah before you do everything. In other words, seek positivity in everything you do. We look at the effect that dhikr have on the heart, on hydrotherapy, healing with water. We look at the salah postures, the salah times, making salah in jama'ah. What effect does it have? And remember, we spoke about if you're consumed in your job for too long, it starts causing harm on the joints, on the mind, on the organs. But the awqat, the 5 waqts throughout the day, are perfectly spaced to ensure that your body gets a rest, the mind gets a rest. And it coincides with the physiological energy levels in the body. We'll speak about that when we come to the postures of salah. We speak about fasting, the hajj. We will look at the Prophet ﷺ healthy practices, which is well acknowledged today to improve our health. Oral hygiene, the use of olive oil. Attar, the attar that you use has medicinal value. We'll speak about temperaments. The oud is a heating attar. If you're a heated individual and you anger quickly, during this heat wave week, don't wear oud. Wear misk. This is all part of the sunnah. Wear sweet smelling attar because it opposes the heat of your body. We'll speak about the temperaments. Exercise, we'll speak about cupping therapy, aromatherapy. We'll look at prophetic nutrition. Prophet ﷺ ate coarse food. He ate food that was unprocessed, some would say, but there wasn't any processed foods. In the Prophet's time, we had the elite of the society which had purified flour, but he chose the coarse flour. Today we know the coarse whole wheat is the best for the digestive tract. But remember, when you practice the prophetic medicine, it doesn't mean if you have some intolerance. For instance, someone has a gluten intolerance. and you find that the Prophet ﷺ loved bread, now you should eat. By eating bread, you're actually going against the sunnah. Remember, you practice the sunnah according to your body's capability. So we have people practicing because they believe something is sunnah, but they forget that the sunnah is holistic. For instance, if I asked, what is sunnah medicine? The most popular answer would be black seed and honey. So we find people buying large jars of black seed and consuming it because of the hadith Prophet ﷺ said that black seed is a cure to every illness except death. But we forget that that one hadith is attached to an entire lifestyle, which means he practiced on preventative medicine, he watched his diet, he exercised. So we can't have a Gatsby in one hand and black seed in the other hand and think we're going to cancel the two out. Have the Gatsby now and then, but understand moderation is important. We're going to look at every medicinal food that is mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, and we're going to look at it from a scientific perspective. What benefit does it hold? The vitamins, the nutrients. Very important to note that I'm trying to cover a lot of ground, but I won't be able to go into depth with each. I'm just giving everybody an appreciation for the different topics within Tibba Nabawi. We're going to talk about black seed and how we should practice on it in the proper way. Because remember, the Prophet ﷺ also went for medical advice by doctors of his time. Steak. So all the men smiling. Steak is from the Sunnah. So tonight we're having a nice T-bone. The Prophet ﷺ loved meat. He loved the shoulder cut. He loved the boat. And what's very significant, that even though meat was beloved to him, he ate it the least. Which shows some principle in Tibba Nabawi that shows that when we have a craving, try to exercise precaution when it comes to that craving, because that craving will lead to your illness. So we find that most often diabetic people crave sugar before they became diabetic. People with high cholesterol love oily things before they develop high cholesterol. So understand that it's okay to have your lovely food when you have to, but know that you have to counteract it with abstinence or with having food that counteracts that. So we'll speak about how food can be used as medicine. We look at the common use of honey, dates, milk, and spices, something that is very much linked to all our cultures. The use of authentic spices. Today, we find that there's huge research in the anti-inflammatory effects of spices, of turmeric, of jeera, of ginger, of everything that we use, that we grew up with. We find that it actually have anti-cancerous properties. Many studies are taking place, and so what's very amazing is that we grew up with authentic curries, which are good for the body, depending on how you make it. And when the children go out into the day-to-day jobs, they're all going for the burgers, and so they're all going towards that lifestyle. When you look at Europe, you'll see all of them starting to make curries because of the scientific value. And the rest of the world, the modern world, is starting to recognize until we come back to making the authentic curries again. So there's medicinal value in a lot of our traditions. We should just link it to Tibba Nabawi and revive the Sunnah. Just to mention, there is a page going around. We will try to have about 10 to 15 minutes question and answers. So there's a few pages going around with pens. Jot down any questions that you have. Just important to mention, often when I give these workshops, I want to ask people just to refrain from asking advice relating to illness conditions, because an illness condition requires a consultation, requires asking what medication you're on, a bit of history. So this wouldn't be the platform to present the illness condition and ask for remedies for it. Because one thing Tibba Nabawi is against is giving one remedy for a certain thing. There's a history that's required. Rather, we want to promote questions relating to the course that I'm talking about. So are there any questions from anybody? So ultimately, the Tibba Nabawi course is designed to fulfill the fitrah. The Prophet ﷺ spoke to us about that every human being has been created on this fitrah, this natural inclination to worship Allah. And Timba Nabawi aligns our lives to nature, because the entire creation is in the worship of Allah. And when we deviate from our natural state, we find that we create tremendous stress on the spiritual body and the physical body. So Timba Nabawi is designed or aims towards bringing us back to that natural way of life. And we find, and what's very amazing is most of us are living that life already, by performing the salah on time, by performing wudu and practicing on the sunnah. However, our perception of that has to change. We have to look beyond something that will just benefit us in the year after, which is something that is very important to us. But we have to acknowledge that this sunnah has a lot of role to play right now. And that creates an incentive. So that's the reason why we're going into the scientific findings relating to the sunnah. But by no means are we saying that we're performing salah because it's an exercise or it causes, improves blood circulation and improves elasticity of joints. No way. We are performing our ibadah because it is what we are created for. But by understanding all of its benefits, it allows us to adopt more. It allows us to have a better appreciation. It allows us to never question the sunnah, because we live in a world where we want to find out the logic for everything. The objective is to realize that there is so much scientific wisdom in everything that we do, that when we hear sunnah, don't try to use our own logic to figure out, so how can this benefit me? We have to be like the Sahaba, sami'na wa ata'na. And because of that attitude, they were strong in their physique. They were great, had great intellectual minds. They transformed the entire earth. So understand that we have a big resource at our disposal, and this class aims towards improving our connection with that resource. So in the upcoming classes next week, we will concentrate on hydrotherapy, looking at water and the effects it has on the human body. We will look at the different postures of salah, the awqat, the different times of salah, and how it interacts or how it relates to energy levels in the body. And in the following weeks, we'll go on to nutrition. We'll go on to the temperaments, etc. Are there any questions? And make sure the pages are going around. I hope the ladies have some pages to write on as well. Most often we find the ladies ask the most questions. And often the ladies are the reason why the husbands are here. They drag the husbands along. But the reason why the ladies have the most questions is because most ladies are connected to their fitrah, which is motherhood, nurturing, caring. So they're always inclined towards health. We just have to get the husbands on board. So when the ladies start adding extra salads to the steak, support the decision. Tell her that we're happy that you're practicing on the sunnah and bringing the natural food in the house. Any questions? Even you want to raise your hand and ask a question. So I'll ask another question towards answering that question. How much do we want to invest in our well-being? How close do we want to be to the sunnah? How productive do you want to be? How much do you want to be the best that you can be? And that's the proportion you have to invest into the sunnah. Also, acknowledging that the Prophet ﷺ told us that it's better to practice on a little thing consistently than to throw the whole Gatsby away. Because what's going to happen if you throw the whole Gatsby away? You're going to be very sad. So have half a Gatsby, then a quarter, then have it once a week, then once a month. And then when you start feeling how good the body feels because you're having more vegetable types foods, lean meats, more olive oil, a few dates here and there, that becomes the incentive. And after a while, the body starts rejecting the food that is not totally natural. So understand that when we are born, the reason why we crave food is because we crave the breast milk that we once tasted, which was the perfect food. So throughout our lives, we are trying to find satisfaction through our taste buds, but we can never find that perfect food. The closest food that we can find to that breast milk that we had is natural food. So when the child's born, the child gets breast milk. What happens is the mom starts to introduce butternut, but the mom adds butter and sugar and salt to it because it doesn't taste nice. In the meanwhile, the child's taste buds is craving the pure butternut. So as the child grows up, we start to change the natural fitrah of that. So all that we want to do now is to return to that. So Tibba Nabawi does not require us to do drastic changes. Firstly, we will recognize there's a lot of things that we are doing already that will benefit us, and it just requires that small steps every day. And the steps become easier and easier as you acknowledge that when I left my workplace now, it was Dhuhr time, and I thought that I wouldn't be able to perform my salah because I had so much work to do, but I broke away because I understand it's the best thing for me to do. I start using the water. I find that it started to refresh me. I wash my face. The worries about the deadlines left me behind. When I stand and perform the qiyam, by raising the arms already, the body has undergone such a good stress relief that when you return to your PC, your productivity has increased. So now you start to feel that this is the best thing that I did, was to leave my work and pray. Because when I prayed, I connected with who I really am. So if you look at our bodies, for instance, at the cellular level, the atom, there's a certain movement around the atom. The cells, the electrons are moving around the atom. If you look at the way the cosmos is moving in a certain way, our blood circulation is in a certain way. When you perform Hajj, we find this ecstasy, this feeling of happiness, because our body internally is doing something. We are consciously moving in that direction. The whole universe is moving in that direction, and that's what Tibba Nabawi is. It's aligning our intention and our day-to-day living according to Allah's design. And when we do that, we increase our productivity. So it depends on how you look at the Sunnah. How much do you want to be better at what you're doing? So think about whatever you're doing. You're a sportsman, you're a panel beater, a bricklayer, a businessman. If you want to become the best at that, become closer connected to the Sunnah, and in all aspects of the life becomes better. Okay, the question is, how healthy are seafoods? Okay. So we have a lot of sushi lovers here. So when it comes to giving health advice on food, we cannot generalize. It depends on your constitution, on your body. So for somebody that is prone to infections and to gastro problems, I would stay away from sushi because it's raw fish, and then we find that that the bacteria grows faster in those environments. Also the way the food is prepared. So the health of the food depends on how it's prepared. So when you speak about Tibba Nabawi, you're going to talk about soul food, which is Sunnah nutrition. We're going beyond the actual item. We're going around everything that revolves around it. So what was the niyyah bought? When you bought that food, who bought that food? How was it bought? Was it food made in a fast food chain whereby the workers are oppressed? Where the workers are cursing every time they slice a tomato, they don't want to be here? Or they put something special in the tomato that doesn't taste so nice? What is the condition of that? So understand that the food that the mothers cook, the wives cook, there is no better food. Because while she's cutting that food, she's reciting the pujis. Sometimes the entire hadith is being recited in Quran ayat. That has an effect on the food. Understand that the entire creation recognizes Allah's kalam. And we'll look at this. We'll look at scientific studies done on plants and Quran ayat and what it does to the growth of plants. So understand that those people that spoke to their plants, they weren't crazy. Their plants grew better because of that niyyah. So when somebody goes out, so the mothers that go out to the shops and they pick up the tomato and they choose the best tomato and they tell the veggie boy, that's not good for my family, I want the red one, that has the effect on the meal. So how the food is prepared is very important. So to ask the question, is seafood, we cannot generalize, seafood can be very good for some people, not good for others, but practice moderation in all aspects. So that question can better be answered when we look at your background, your history, the illness condition that you suffer from. If you look at Tibba Nabawi, there are certain qualities assigned to food. Seafood will be given the cold quality. So in the heart of winter, if you're a person that's struck by colds and flus, sometimes having too much sushi can create a cold environment within the body that allows the flu to progress further. But that's according to Tibba Nabawi's. So I'll give you an example. If you're a very hot-blooded person and you have Nando's peri peri for breakfast, and you hit traffic, if a taxi driver cut in front of you, you blow a gasket because the heat is so high in your body. But if you're practicing on Tibba Nabui, which treats with opposite, and you're a heated individual and the heat wave come, and Tibba Nabui teaches us, the Prophet ate dates with cucumbers, saying that the coolness of the one overcomes the heat of the other. Dates are very heating. So if you're a hot-blooded person, have cooling foods and see what it does to your temper. So have cucumbers and yogurt in the morning. Have big salads with your spicy foods. Have buttermilk with your biryani. There's a balance. So Tibba Nabui teaches us that everything we do, we can actually balance our day-to-day life. So the question about seafood, we cannot generalize. So understand that we'll speak about using food as medicine. Can one eat garlic every day for the rest of your life? Depends on the person. You probably could. How much garlic are you eating? For what are you eating? That's another problem. What you find is people swapping herbal remedies left, right, and center. So someone uses lemon water with turmeric and honey, and it's good for their jugh, and they pass it on. Understand that when you use spices and herbs in your food, it gives some medicinal value and flavor to the food. When you use it out of that amount, it becomes a medicine. So if you use a lot of ginger powder, it can be beneficial for a flu, but it can be harmful for somebody that has an ulcer. So be careful about this concept that all herbs are safe. That is not true. Herbs are medicine. It has an effect on the body. So go to people that study the science. Doctors in natural medicine that study the constituents of it, that can advise on it. So it wouldn't be, one thing I know that garlic is very good for lowering cholesterol. It has anti-clotting factors, so in other words, it helps to thin the blood. But if you're on a blood thinner, too much garlic can be detrimental to you. So understand that if you are a healthy person, there's no illness condition, if you have a clove of garlic every day, you'll probably be fine. But if there's a certain illness condition, it could benefit or worsen it. Okay, so the questions are coming in now, Sheikh. How often is cupping recommended? Is cupping a cure for most illnesses? Cupping is a cure for most illnesses alongside the rest of the sunnah. So then again, cupping can do a lot for the body. It can relieve pain. But if you're living a lifestyle that is hard on the body, you're not consuming the right foods, you're not watching the digestive tract, you will be inducing pain in the body. So cupping will be able to relieve it for a while, but it will come back. Cupping is not recommended for everybody. We have wet and dry cupping. Dry cupping is meant to remove excess from the body. If someone is weak and frail, they cannot be cupped. There's a misconception that because cupping is from the sunnah, everybody can be cupped. That is not true. We'll deal with cupping when we come to that topic. Is there such a thing as chronic fatigue syndrome? Okay, so the question is, how do you go about addressing it? All the illness conditions that we have today are given certain names, but within Tibba Nabui, it is all linked to the same thing. The inability for the body to expel toxins. So when we are unable to expel waste in a proper way through the bowels and through the skin and through our breathing, it manifests in joints, in the digestive tract, on the skin as pimples. So if you look from Tibba Nabui, we aim towards cleansing the body. So to give the muscle rub is a symptomatic treatment, meaning a topical, it's just to sort out the effects of the illness. But the underlying cause it comes from the belly. And you'll find that the field of nutritional medicine recognizes that all illnesses come from the belly. And that's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He mentioned that every illness and everything is linked to the belly. So we find those individuals that have good bowel movements, that have less indigestion, they are healthy most of the time. But illnesses is a part of life. The Prophet ﷺ was the most perfect in health, in his physique, but he suffered the most illness, to show us that it's part of his rahmah again. That when you have suffered by illness, it doesn't mean that you did something wrong, that you understand that it's part of life, but there's a way to follow to improve the illness or to improve the quality of life. There's just one statement written here: unnecessary worry. Okay. Emotions have a big role to play. Therefore, we find that the reason why people who pray, and this goes across all religions, have a better quality of life is because they understand the events of life better. But when we are consumed to our own logic that this is happening to me because I didn't follow this, because of me, because that causes unnecessary worry. So when we worry about our risk too much, when we worry about our jobs too much, it harms us from the inside. So if your emotions is not intact, and we find the Prophet ﷺ, he cared about emotions to such a degree that he could sense when somebody was unhappy. And he would change his body language, he would change his tone to bring about happiness in people. And that's what we should be doing. And the salah and the awqat and the jama'ah is there for the purpose of uplifting each other. So understand that emotional counseling is very important. That when someone worries too much, it leads to internal stress. So we have stress hormones that circulate in the blood, causing your blood pressure to go up, your sugar to go up. So you can be taking all the medication. If you're not sorting out that worry, even if you follow the best lifestyle, the best diet, if you're not sorting out the mind, your illness will perpetuate. Therefore we find, Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. In the remembrance of Allah, hearts find contentment. And when our worries start dissipating in the adhkar, in our salah, then we feel at ease. And that's the reason why we have to submit. We have to, because the deen of Islam presents this perfect lifestyle that creates a framework to keep away the stress or to lessen the stress. So in the upcoming weeks, we'll focus on the stress reduction within Tibb Nabawi. I look forward to conducting the lesson next week, inshallah. Last. How close is yoga connected to the sunnah? I had somebody say one day that I eat yogurt every day. I eat plain yogurt every day. So yoga is a system that we find in Indian medicine whereby people meditate, they acknowledge, they try to calm the mind, breathing exercises. We actually do that in our salah every day. But if you look at the salah as, what the one sheikh say, up, down, kiss the ground, then it will only be that. Understand that the salah is perfect postures of all the prophets. And this question will actually tie into next week's lesson, where we look at every posture and see what it does to every joint of the body, to the mind. And we'll look at how it links on to tazkiyah. That when you perform a perfect ruku', what it does, it increases humility. So we find that Tibb Nabawi is very connected to tazkiyah and the matters of the heart. They tie in with certain adhkar is given by shuyukh, because they understand that this adhkar is needed in your life right now. So we'll find that globally there's a call towards meditation, to praying, to yoga. So all of us is fine. Don't be fooled by thinking that I can't perform yoga because it's connected to another religion. Understand, as long as the act does not contradict the tawheed and aqidah, it is part of sunnah. Because the entire creation, the entire world has been created to be subservient to our needs. Allah has created man to worship him, and Allah has created the rest of creation to help man worship him. So healing can be found anywhere. It is not confined to a doctor's room or to a tablet. Healing can be found in a smile, in a handshake, in the Quran, in a letter of mud, in tajweed. It can be found in a scent, in a company. Sitting right here, people might feel healing. So don't underestimate any gathering, anywhere you find good. That's how the Muslims looked at the world in the past. Wherever they found good, this was directly from Allah. If there's a bit of bad, I chuck that bit out, I take the rest. I don't throw everything away. And by doing that, you are practicing Tibb Nabawi. Tibb Nabawi refers to using the resources, the Quran and the Sunnah, to live your life according to the deen of Allah and to adopt a natural lifestyle. And with that few words, we end off. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. 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 العالمين.